questioning it last week. Like, no, maybe not. It will be on before that thing says we're actually on. See, it says we're not on, but I guarantee we are on.
All right.
All right. So let's get the recording going. All right. Let's make sure that we're up on Facebook here. I think we're up on Facebook. Let's see what happens. There we are. We are up on Facebook. Well, what do you know about that? Hey, everybody. Hey, it's Wednesday night. It must be Whiskey Wednesday. There we go. That's what I like to hear. Well, sort of Whiskey Wednesday. We have sort of a very different presentation for you guys tonight. And it's going to combine whiskey and tequila, but in a good way. Arik Torren is here. Did I say it, Torren?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is here today. He is going to educate us on mi casa. I always feel like I'm starting a Spanish class. Mi casa, su casa. And then when I say to my kids, I go, muy bueno. And they love that. That's my extent of my.
That's it.
That's it. You got it. We're going to do mi casa tequila, but we're also going to delve into whiskey from Mexico, which I think is going to be really cool. And we're going to try the only rye whiskey ever
right. From Mexico. It shouldn't exist.
It
should not exist.
It sounds like a horror movie, doesn't it now? It shouldn't even exist. But yet, here we are battling it now. All right. So, and when I also have to preface this, when I say we're going to be doing tequila tonight, we're going to be doing some really cool tequilas that you probably have not had, and conceptually very different tequilas.
Yes, these tequilas are also somewhat of a happy accident, and we have a lot of those things happening in my life and in what we're presenting today. So we'll talk about those things.
Well, let's start. Let's get going. There he is, Arik. So, what do we got? Tell me first, let's start with mi casa.
Okay.
Because it's our house. Right?
Yeah, it's our house.
All right.
And thank you for having me in your house.
Thank you.
I really
Welcome.
appreciate
You're welcome.
this.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're thrilled. And look at all this turnout here. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Mi Casa, this is a very unique tequila for a number of different reasons. And there are some unique things on the ongoing aspects of it, as well as these batches. And then we'll talk about that. So this is a family-owned brand. It's a grower tequila. And I really like to point out the fact that they control their own agave really, and there's no corporate pressure to harvest immature or rush harvesting. We have really, really mature agave going into the production, and that means a couple of different things: sugar levels and also glycerin. Agave. A lot of people don't know this, but agave plants in its later maturation stage will produce its own glycerin, and that's why we can have this amazing texture in these spirits without any additives. These are without.
But you're only talking on these. You're basically talking. There's no additives on these.
Oh,
you're only talking like water, yeast, agave,
and barrel and barrel, right?
You want to count the barrel.
Right. And then, but the plant will produce its own glycerin.
That's okay. It's naturally occurring.
Oh, it's amazing, and that's where you get the mouthfeel. But and when you have a tequila made with a properly harvested plant, it's a world of difference, and we're going to experience that. But these batches have another story as well. So the family who own the brand, the Rodriguez family, they own this farm in Michoacan. They've been growing their agave since 2000. They wanted to get into the brand business and really stabilize, be sort of agnostic of the market fluctuations of agave pricing. It's all over the place. They launched their brand in 2010. They made this production run in 2011, and I met them in 2015. And building a brand and growing agave and selling agave are a little different. So when I met them, that's when we really started talking. I was like, wait, what do you have in inventory? What's not bottled? This is amazing. Eventually, Carmen, Christina, Ezekiel, and Eli, we all got together and we relaunched Mi Casa, a little updated packaging. And it's been a fun ride. And
I just love the fact that you can name all the people that are responsible
uh,
for the production of this product. I mean,
yeah,
pretty much, yeah, right?
it's the family. It's a family of four, two adult children, and mom and dad. And they're really a delight to work with, and we're really fortunate. My partner Cameron and I, our company is called Lot One Brands, and our thing is really about finding incredibly cool spirits from Mexico, and telling their stories and sharing their products, and that's what we're really doing here. So when I said 2011, yeah, we're having a Blanco as well as barrel aged extra añejos that have been distilled in 2011, and that's kind of a one-time thing that's happened. So they did their second production run, and it didn't get bottled. So instead of being in stainless steel holding tank for 9 months, 3 months, whatever, something like that, it's after 10 years. And the
This
barrels,
might be the only 10-year-old aged
yeah,
Blanco.
we try to be delicate with the word age, and we just talk about it as conditioning.
It's resting.
Well, that's reposado.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
true too.
like,
Damn it.
yeah, so we just try to, I feel comfortable with conditioned.
Okay.
10-year condition, tank condition, blah, blah. So this is, it has so much oxidative time, although it doesn't taste like it's been oxidized, but it has this natural sort of
Well, it takes a lot of
softening.
the volatility
Yeah.
is gone.
Yeah, so water that's both inside the still strength prior to the dilution, there's water in there off as it's coming into the batch, and those H2O molecules, they kind of tend to be fickle, so the angles of they change over time, and that's what we experience in distilled spirits. One of the things we experience in distilled spirits with time, and we typically feel that as people, as an improvement in texture, right? So that's kind of the conditioning that's happening. Um, well, I'll just brag a little bit. We just tried and proved the next production run. So we'll be releasing and normalizing the brand with Blanco, with a high proof, with a Reposado, and down the road, Añejo. Uh, and it's not 14 years old or, made that long ago. And it is delicious, So when you make something right, it carries on. But these are very unique batches that we get to enjoy. In addition to the Blanco, we have the two 9-year extra añejo expressions. One of them is a small batch, and we have a series of 6 different ones. And then with our distributor partner here in Massachusetts, Burke, they decided to pick a single barrel. So when when this production run happened, they they filled up 118 barrels, and they were going for a very light style reposado and añejo. And because that just carried on into time, they became sort of addressed and proved and became products from the barrel after 9 years. And luckily for us, they were very well used and well traveled American whiskey barrels. So we don't have a lot of new oak influence, but after 9 years, there's plenty of oak. I think you guys will experience that. And we have 3 different batches for you to try. The current release of the small batch, which is an 8-barrel blend, a single barrel, and then we also have the previous release, which is out in the wild. So you'll be able to of the small batch. So you'll be able to see what the same Blanco going into 2 different sets of barrels is going to be similar and different.
I think that's really cool because what you're basically looking at is you're trying to get the barrel aging is trying to go into sort of an almost a neutral barrel.
Yes.
Right? Because they're well aged, like you're not looking for like overly influence of like what was in there before.
Yeah, and we're also
Like if
because
it was bourbon, it was fresh bourbon. You're going to get a lot more of those vanillins and all of that stuff, but it's coming from the residual of the bourbon and not necessarily the wood.
well, on top of that, we're also dealing with like just the it's a response to what is actually there. Originally, yes, they were going for a very light style reposado, but now at 9 years,
Yeah, you can't
how do
help
we
it.
contextualize
Right.
what's there? So we went down there in the summer of 2020. This was the craziest experience, and all of you would have flipped out if you. We went down there because the distillery called the family, and they called me, and they're like, okay, they're expanding where the barrels are. These aren't rick houses, but they're very large barrel aging areas adjacent to the production area. These racks were right next to, or stacks were right next to the distillery. So they were expanding and they had to move. So there was 10 weeks to move these barrels. And Eli's freaking out and he's got a job that's kind of global now. And he's like, I don't know what we're going to do. We figured out 4 days. We went down there. We tasted each barrel at full strength, 4 different dilutions, trying to satisfy the roadmap that we had, which was for single barrel and for small batch. And I think the most important part and thing that happened was finding 3 of the barrels that were foul. And I'm very much I feel very much of an expert on my own palate, but I don't have a big working history with barrels, so I don't know much about whatever the bacteria is and all those kind of
Right,
technical things. But they were bad, and now I know from that experience, like, what happens when people blend in, just bulk blending into batches, because I could subtly pick it up sometimes in some
right.
places. None of the good brands, of course, but so that was really a cool and intense
Well, if you make a
experience.
batch big enough, you can hide just
You
about
could
anything.
hide,
Just
yeah,
about
yeah,
anything,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So we got to do this incredible experience and walk through it and really taste all the different ones.
Well,
Awesome.
let's get started. Let's
Yeah.
start with the Blanco, although
Yeah.
they probably might be done with everything at this point.
You're those kind of people.
You saw the crowd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's exactly those type of people. Anyways, let's start with the Blanco.
All
So this
right.
Blanco has been sitting in stainless steel for 9 years or 10.
This was 10 because
10.
the barrels had to be addressed sooner, so that this actually sat like undealt with for an extra year.
Okay.
Salute everyone. Thank you for all for coming. Cheers.
I see what you're talking about, that mouthfeel though.
And because of our experience here with this, as we tried it at the pre-dilution at the still strength, we realized that we had something else here. So we decided to proof it at its perfect proofing, or ideally speaking, at what we thought was perfect. And we had them set us up with all these different dilutions, and then we chose it based strictly on taste. And because there were, it was just a one-time thing for that. So as we move forward, the Blanco will be at 40%, and then there'll be a high proof. But for this batch, it came we really loved it and had the opportunity to do it at 45.5.
Yeah, 45.5 guys.
Nice
on this
landing
one,
zone.
So.
Yeah.
But that's really the way to do it. Is you want, I mean, you're sort of, you go up and down on the dilution to just sort of see where it just sort of shines. And wherever that is where it is.
Ideally speaking, that's the ideal. And then there's the economic aspect of it.
Right.
So when we went into the proofing of the next batch, we did it. We went through the process of this, the not yet released Blanco to replace this batch. And we had it proofed down to all different proofs and half step proofs. And then both my partner and I went to 2 different methods, and he brought it to all these different people, and I had everybody come to me. And the reality was that for both of us, we had the same kind of a result where everybody had a different favorite. And then we went and talked about the numbers, and we're like, okay, well, this is a tiny emerging brand, and we don't want to change the price, and we are going to be able to have continuity of price due to cost. And now that they're much more connected to the expenses, because it's not like a big gap of time and evaporation and all that.
Right.
So we're like, all the other great brands do it at 40%, and it wasn't like one proof shined over the others. And so that's why going forward, it'll be at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you guys think of this one? Right? The finish on this one goes on for like ever. I think it's almost because of the viscosity. I think it just sort of like it sticks to your tongue.
Yeah. And the proof, it definitely is carrying on the ABV a little bit. I love that combination of the profile. So this tequila, like how you produce definitely matters, as of course you all know. But so the way that this tequila is made, it's champagne yeast. It is so it's a controlled fermentation. It is a low pressure autoclave, so the cook time is longer. It's more gentle, and then it goes in double. It's distilled in twice in pot stills with copper coils. So this is a very typically a style of tequila that, in that process, you'll get a very generous flavor profile as well as like a pretty profile, and I think all that kind of lives here. So a lot has to do with the champagne yeast.
Nice. Really good.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Thank you. Me too.
I might have a new favorite Blanco
Yeah.
that I'll have to buy now. Thanks. You're very proud of that, as you should.
Well,
No, you should be.
We're in a basement. Everybody,
Excuse me. This is the lower level.
the
Sir.
lower level. Well, I mean, I think I say basement with love and joy. That's
Yeah.
where I started drinking. It was in my mom's basement. But also like, I'm going to be keeping back a bunch of those cases because this is a one and done batch.
Yeah, you can't. You'll never do this again.
It'll never happen again. So like, if you like it, know that.
Know that. Yeah.
Know that. These are all non-chill filtered, both of these brands. So as you go into the bottle like this one, you might see a little bit of, tannic,
Sediment or
resins
something,
and
yeah.
sediments. Yeah.
All right. So the next one is the Mi Casa. This is the aged 9 years.
Mhm.
I mean, it's the small batch.
Yeah.
I love. By the way, it's in añejo. It's an extra añejo. I mean, I know you put one extra, but I mean that's only because it hit the upper limit.
Well, there's no upper limit, but
No, that's what I'm saying. But
oh,
it's
for
like,
the añejo.
yeah, I mean, you can use this. You can use that terminology with not. You don't have to go 9 years to use it.
No, no.
But you have a 9-year-old here that you're doing, and this is small batch. How many barrels did you say? This is 43% for those of you keeping score at home.
Yep.
Well, how many barrels did you
That's
use?
batch number 3.
Yep.
That's an 8-barrel blend. Batch 1, batch 2, batch 3 were all 8-barrel blends. Batch 4 is 9. Batch 5 is 7, and batch 6 was 12. So that was like a little bit of like, okay, we're making, we didn't want to have 6.5 batches. And if you go to my website, which is
I'm going to put that up there.
Put that
I'm going to put that up there
yeah,
because I got it. So you gave it to me. So
well, we like to nerd out, so you could see all the specifications of not just the brand and the brand information, but also the specification of batches. So you'll see the proof, how many bottles came out of the barrel, and in fact, we had a lot of fun. And you could see here, there's a map of the barrels in themselves on the back of the label. This was in 2 different stacks. So these 118 barrels were configured in 2 different estibas or stacks. And we, both for the small batch and the single barrels, you could specifically see where that rested in which barrels contributed to it and where it was in the stack. And also read about the environmental conditions and what was different from the left side to the right side and things like that. So just if you want to like immerse yourself into what this barrel might have went through, you could kind of, we add some more color to that on the website.
What do you guys think of this? First of all, this is real. This is really good. When Derek brought this in for me to try and the guys came down and I was just like, man, this is something special. This is really good.
Look at the color, how light it is. 9 years, and that's because these are really well-used barrels.
Did somebody have a question?
So it's a mix of
square ones.
Exactly, a mix of
what type of barrels?
Yeah, Space in the Reds. A mix of Heaven Hill and Evan Williams. Not Evan Williams.
Evan Williams would be
no. Yeah, the from Tennessee. Dickel. Yeah. So it's a mix of that. And unfortunately, I didn't have like the data of which barrel was which from which, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have added that because I would have added that. I like that information. I just really didn't have it.
But you can also tell there's no way, like if these were just out of fresh barrels, there's no way that you'd be looking at that color after 9 years.
I mean, we're going to just grab this bottle of 18-month aged New American Oak Deep Char whiskey. and
Like
the
the color
color is
difference,
so
right?
much darker. And we'll talk about why
This
well,
has
yeah.
this has woodiness to it. It has vanilla. It has a plethora of flavors going on, but it's not. There's no like. Listen, my big thing now is like if your tequila tastes like birthday cake, you need a new tequila.
Yeah,
This doesn't have any of that. The flavors are very complex. They're very lingering. They go on forever, and this is really good. This is a really good.
I'm going back to that day where I got to try all that week, that 4 days where I tried all the barrels, like on mind blowing experience. So being able to share a snapshot into that, um, it's we love it. So this for us, this is a tequila, a very well aged tequila that still shows agave notes, and that's critical. And I think if this was first after bourbon and then left for 9 years, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It would
Right.
have went somewhere else.
It would have went
I
off
would
the
not.
chart.
Well, I mean, we would not have been bringing it into the country. Like that's part. Like it just would have been lost for us, and that's
Yeah.
it
That's
lost
really
its
good.
yeah, so this is batch number 3. This is what's in now, and I think if we jump over,
You want to jump to
tasting
number eight?
eight.
Number 8.
So
Just so you
I
guys.
had in a different market that I just came from, and a different distributor and a different sample of batch number 2. So this is out in the wild, but not available here
Okay.
because it's already been sold through in the state of Massachusetts. So you get to see how a different grouping of 8 barrels taste. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So try in slot number 8. That'll give you that thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is very good too.
Oh yeah.
I think we made out. I think Massachusetts got a very nice batch.
Massachusetts had both. So
Yeah, I know,
somewhere
but
out there
there's
is
probably
that
still
too.
some left.
Yeah, for sure. It's out in the wild.
I like
somewhere.
this batch though. I think I like this one a little bit better.
I think number 3 is
which is slot number 2.
yes,
Just to
batch
numerically
3.
confuse you.
Yes, exactly. They're both 9-year. So everything had to be proofed and bottled at that time. So even our single barrel releases, ones that haven't yet been sold, there'll be no barrel drift because they're all been proofed and bottled. That was something that
they're
the
sitting there and they're
conditions
ready
of the
to go.
distillery because we had to.
No, I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Well, we didn't have a choice because they're like move it or lose it, So it was one of those moments. But this, so the third release, the third batch is to me very awesomely peculiar because it has this very deep vanilla sense, but also this like sort of graphite pencil thing going on that I really like. And number 2 is a little bit tart, more acidic.
Yeah, definitely on
like,
that.
Yeah, more kind of
It's a little bit more
cherry.
Sharp edges. But good.
Yeah,
but both of them are good.
Yeah, and
by the way, both of these blow away almost every. I would say every like 150 and up bottlings that I've had recently.
Well, that's nice. That's
no,
awesome.
I'm just telling you where. I'm not lying to you.
And we are like, these are expensive tequilas, or at least the 9 years are, but we also see them being a really strong value because you don't have a lot. Most of those options at $150 are still in the añejo or barely into extra añejo. So there's a lot of angel share that happened from these and just very uniqueness. And it's a limited series. So when it's done, it's done. We just started production again in 2024. So we have the new things queued up. I doubt in the early this year or next year production, we'll have barrels that escape into the 9 years old. There'll be some añejo, reposado, of course, and then we'll see what happens. See about demand.
Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
All right, so the next one is a single barrel.
That is a single barrel. Barrel number 56A. So
56A, you're very good. You're right.
From stack A. And barrel number 56. So if we look on the map,
53.9 on this one. 53.9.
So all of these proofed up above the legal bottling ABV for tequila. So the production run of this particular batch of Blanco for all of this that we're trying was 54.5. You cannot put the word tequila on a bottle if it goes over 55. So all of these proved up. So there is no cask strength for tequila. We could have declassified it. Barrel number 56 is pretty high up on the stack and pretty far to the left. And the left was cooler than the right. So that's kind of what
So
we can
this one,
say about
yeah,
that.
if you look on the back, I just said this is 56A. This
Mhm.
is stack. This shows you the stacks, and it's all the barrels are listed here of all the 75 barrels that are there. So you can sort of pick out where it is.
Yep.
And you can go on the website, which I did just put up on Facebook Live. If you want to see that, you can, which is your company
yeah, our imports website.
imports website, and it's got all the technical data on just about everything you guys do. So this is number 3. This is actually for am I right on that, Derek? This is Burke's.
Yep, this is Burke's pick.
Burke's barrel.
Only for Massachusetts, not sold in anywhere else, and it's 56 bottles. I haven't tried this since it was pre-launch, so thank you. It was a really nice treat.
This is really nice.
It's got like a little wine, like almost like a red wine note.
Yeah,
on the nose.
Yep, exactly. Not really on the cognac sense, but actually in like a fresh wine.
Yeah, and it's much higher proof than the other bottling, and it still has like that sort of really good like mouthfeel and texture going all the way through the swallow, but it's a bit more prickly, in the middle. I really like that.
It jumps a little bit. It's got that to it. I think it's really nice.
Cool.
What do you guys think?
Yep.
You guys I'm pretty impressed with the whole lineup so far. I mean, you got, I don't know how many people here are into tequila, but this is pretty impressive. That's why we had to have him come up. I said, you got to come up and do a tasting.
Yeah, it worked out perfect. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys,
yeah,
you got to come up and do this because they're going to be blown away by these products. And then the other part was we're now entering into the other half of this seminar or this presentation, because these are just insanely different. But I've had Mexican whiskey before. I will tell you that.
Me too.
Yeah, not very good.
Well,
most of them not very. I was very impressed with what I got to try. And that's why I wanted them to try it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the category is so small that you can almost it's almost not fair to say Mexican whiskey not very good. It's more like, no, it's this producer, that producer.
Right, exactly.
There are more and more producers coming in the market. We're going to see a lot of different inspirations, variations, skill sets. I
think a lot of it's going to depend on skill set.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
And choices, So this is called Maiz Nation. And so much about this project is a culmination of Jonathan Barbieri and Gira Vallejo, their husband and wife, that this is their brand and they're the makers, and about a combination of their ethos, their ideals, and their skill and their passion. And I say that without being like hyperbolic at all. So a couple of things. So on the production side, this distillery is called Soulcraft, and they built it for this brand. And it is 100% off-grid distillery for the production of this whiskey. All of the electrical usage, including the stills, which are electric blanket jacketed stills, are all being powered from the batteries that are being charged by the sun. The building, the roof, was designed to collect rainwater. They have 2 underground cisterns collecting rainwater, and all of this is being produced from collected rainwater. And then there is the waste and the processing of the vinazas, as we say in Mexico, or the gray water, the stillage. And that's a complicated thing to really clean up without, especially if you're not using very expensive or high-tech type of solutions. And they worked with the University of Oaxaca, and they have an amazing stepwise solution that includes a series of microbial digesters, which ultimately remove, deacidify it and also do a lot of the cleaning. but it doesn't get heavy metals and copper, notably, out of the waste. So they found, this is where the university really figured out and did some studies, create a closed, and we have photographs on this on the website. It's a closed tub garden that the water then goes into there, and the plants that are in there are specifically suited and talented and amazing at removing heavy metal and copper specifically from the water. It then goes into this final stage evaporation filter and goes back into the Mother Nature as a clean water. It's really, really incredible. And then side fun little fact on that, there are two plants in the gardens. There's the carizo, which is kind of like a grass or a type of bamboo, and not really exciting other than badass. And then there is calla lilies, which are like the most beautiful flower.
Yeah.
And it is the state flower of the state of Oaxaca. And it just so happens to be a flower that loves to take copper out of the water.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. And Jonathan and Gita are using this. You know, there's so much distillation and natural producers throughout Oaxaca and throughout Mexico. And it's an open book. They are inviting every producer of mezcal, of anybody, to come and learn this process there and be better for the planet and be better shepherds and participants in it. You know, as production in mezcal and Oaxaca has grown and grown and grown, and the demand in the market has grown, the impact on the environment is very different than what it was for the 400 years prior.
Right.
So it hopefully will be beneficial in a broader sense as well. So that's just the
I like that. I like that
Yeah.
a lot. I'm just sort of, it's thinking of solutions to problems without, you can still achieve what you want to achieve with putting less impact on the environment.
Yeah, and it's not like it's planning, but it's fortunate that it doesn't require a huge amount of money.
Right.
You know, you could do it in a very simplistic
Right.
way and accomplish a lot.
All right. So
So
what's
now-
this first one we're going to try?
Oh my God. First one. So we have everything Jonathan is making is 6% malted barley. So his practice is very international oriented. So this is not a nixtamalized type of whiskey. So the first two expressions are the same mash bill. They are the Blanco and the Añejo of 94% native corn. And this one is an unaged whiskey. And I think for me, when I drank it and when I experienced it for the first time, I was blown away.
Wow.
I haven't had anything like it because of the combination for me of the texture and the clarity in which the profile of the corn comes through. It almost feels more like I'm having a very elegant eau de vie rather than a white dog.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy on that. It really does taste more like an eau de vie. It's got a great finish on it too.
It's awesome.
Have any of you guys have had
I'm in
white
love.
dog or the stuff off the still?
Yeah.
This is a lot tamer than most of the stuff you get off the still, that type of stuff. But it really does drink like like almost like a fine eau de vie. But it is still, and I will point this out, it is still whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean,
great
it's
spirit.
very distinctful in the flavor profile that you're drinking corn whiskey.
Yes. Yeah. And we couldn't, this is a corn whiskey, of course, but we can't legally call it corn whiskey in the United States, which requires it to be 100% corn. But the on the corn, let's talk about that for a second, and interrupt me if I go too far on
Well,
this.
let me just ask, does anybody have a question about this before we go on? I thought I saw a hand up. That's why I asked. Okay. The
48 on this one.
48.
Yeah.
48 ABV.
48 ABV. The corn itself, they work with historic families and pre-Hispanic families and native farmers who practice milpa, which is a way of crop rotation and working in balance. And this is where corn was invented by humanity 6,500 years ago and continues to be managed. There is no such thing as wild corn. There never has been, and there won't be that way. So in a sense that this is an ancestral strain of corn, which is totally what it is, what the corn in here are. But there's a way of thinking about it that's also really interesting, where it's also the most modern corn on the planet, because every year they're going from seed to planting, and these are not monocultures, and we are not, of course, genetically modified and using the same strain year over year. Because of that, one of the things that will not happen with Maiz Nation is a single varietal release or production and release, because the way that Maiz Nation is working with the agricultural communities is that, number one, for food sovereignty, they're only buying surplus corn. So when it started, it was 2 different farming communities. Now we're up to 4, and there's more queued up. And again, by combining the different variations of varieties of corn, there is no market pressure, to importer pressure, to producer pressure, to farmer pressure to say, okay, everybody wants,
Everybody's getting
purple.
production up, and
Everyone wants purple, so plant more purple
Right.
corn. And then all of a sudden, because of the success of the brand, you have a shift in the future genetics of these historic ancestral practices. So that's also not happening. So that's just a part of it.
You take it as it comes.
Take it as it comes.
Right.
And so, yeah, we're working with 4 different communities. And the next one, should we jump into the next one?
Yeah. What did you guys think of
Okay,
this? I mean, did you guys like it?
Yeah.
I think it's super interesting, but it is, past interesting. It actually tastes really good.
Well,
I mean, sometimes it's like, sometimes we talk about things of like, just for an educational purpose, this is what drink this. Educational wise, you need to know about this because it relates to other things.
It's not just
right?
a reference,
but it's actually
something we could drink.
It's something that you could enjoy.
Yeah, and we're seeing actually with this, some people being inspired and using it in cocktail menus and around the country.
It's almost like vodka, only it has flavor.
It has flavor and it has nice texture.
Right, it does.
And when it comes to a cocktail with something like this, it's not a swap. It's not like, okay, well, we're using Old Forester or whatever you're using for your cocktail. Let's use this, because it's really inspiring people to go from the ground up and make something that highlights the spirit. So we've had some fun, different representations, but a very really interesting one for me is kind of like a 50-50 kind of drink with the Blanco and a Madeira, a sherry, or something like that, where we still get the profile of the whiskey and we get some interesting other aroma.
That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, so yes, let's go.
Yep, into the añejo.
To the añejo.
So same mash bill.
I'm missing one.
Just
so you know.
We are all
number 6.
Missing. Yeah.
No.
So same mash bill, which is 94% corn.
What's
We're
that?
going into number 5.
No, I'm missing 6. Mm-hmm. I'm missing 6. I'm counting on my fingers and toes, and I'm missing a whiskey.
Not fair.
Not fair. So I wanted to make sure I was getting 5 and then 6. Yeah. So number 5. Number 5 for you guys.
So Gita's from Mexico, and Jonathan is Mexican, but he is born and raised in Northern California. So one of his inspirations, or I think a touchback, and it happens to be really beautiful cooperage, is in Northern California. There's a cooperage that services the wine industry called Sonoma Cooperage. It's all California white oak. And typically they're toasted barrels for wine. Jonathan imports that to Mexico to do this deeply charred new barrels for his whiskey. So he gets to kind of tap into where he was born, but also work with it there in Mexico. And, we were talking about color and time a little bit, whereas the tequila's 9 years in used barrels and much lighter. This particular batch is 18 months old, and it's a 2-barrel blend, a 2-barrel batch, and yielded.
We call that micro batching.
Oh yeah. And it's 378 bottles in total, and if you could see how dark it is, and it's important to talk about the climate the barrels are in. There's no rick house with 40,000 barrels making its own microclimate, defending from the weather extremes outside, which is a beautiful and magical thing. That's not happening here. Diurnal shift, the day to night temperature change on a daily basis is 25 to 45 degrees because we're talking about tropical and mountainous climate. This is outside of the city of Oaxaca by 40 minutes. So, 5,500 feet above sea level, tropical climate, a lot of change in temperature. So what does that mean? Expansion and contraction into the grains of wood regular daily. So look at that color. So when we talk about like these kind of things that we all want to talk about, want to share this information, you need to contextualize it not against anything else that I can really think of, right? I haven't had this kind of experience with the barrel. This batch is at 50% ABV. Fruity.
This has got a great. I was when we tried it when
which was a different batch, by the way.
Was a different batch than this one. But when we tried it though, but I'll tell you one thing that's sort of played on both of those batches is there's a clove cinnamon sort of finish on this, like almost like a combo, almost leaning to clove almost flavor profile on the finish on this, and it's really I think it's really lovely because I don't think it doesn't mimic anything else. It's its own beast.
It really is.
It's its own creation, and then that's and like I said, but this is actually really tasty.
It's got a little
really
that
pleasant and really
heat.
pleasant, right?
Yeah, it's got a nice warming heat on there on the palate for me. Like kind of comes down in the chest comfortably.
Say, stokes the fire, but doesn't choke the chimney.
Oh yeah, yes, exactly. Thank you. Can I use that?
Sure.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah. No, it doesn't taste like a bourbon. You're absolutely correct. And you're looking at it going like, it has, and here's the difference. It's like, we talk about this is like, sort of like Provence or time and place where you're making things, how that does play into the final product. And that's, if this was made in Kentucky, so to speak, it would just taste different. I mean, especially at 18 months.
18 months.
18 months.
And a year and a half, you're talking, right? You cannot get this.
You can't, and the corn itself is going to be different.
Yeah, yeah.
But do you guys like this?
Yeah,
it's really good, right? I'm not. It's just not me. It's really good. It's really not an equation to anything else. It's just good on its own.
Thank you. Yeah. But so on that note, on that conversation of bourbon, we do have an expression that on the first import we sold through. We didn't have it on the second. The third one is coming up, and we will have it. It's called Selection Barbieri, made by Jonathan Barbieri, and that is Jonathan's bourbon-inspired mash bill. It's a 4-grain whiskey. The previous batch, so not the next one, was 60% corn, the native corn, 20% wheat, 14% rye, and 6% malted barley. So that's out there. The next one, I haven't gotten the stats on that release on what the mash bill is.
It's always changing, always evolving.
Well, specifically in the Selection Barbieri, that's in addition to the bourbon-inspired type of mash bill, it's also where he gets to be exploring some of the boundaries and understanding it as it being new. And I mean, well, in some regards it's very new, in some regards it's not. And Jonathan's track record of distillation in general is quite experienced. So it's kind of a combination. So it is a bit of an experimental playground from that release. But there will be mash bill variations in other expressions as well. So this rye that we're going to try number 6.
So this is number 6.
Yeah. So now I'm going to tell you a little story, guys. And the rye story is what this is, it shouldn't exist, right? So about 9 years ago, Jonathan was driving through the Sierra Norte and picked up a hitchhiker who is a farmer. And they got to talking, of course. And he's like, what do you grow? Well, I grow corn and I grow Centeno rye. And he's like, stop. How do you grow rye? Rye is not from here. I make whiskey. Tell me more. And he's like, well, a year ago, so like the year before, Jonathan, I'm sorry, the farmer got into a car accident with an Italian baker. I swear this is the story.
In Mexico.
In Oaxaca, like in a very remote part of the northern Oaxacan mountains, and they became really good friends. And he's like, well, I have some rye seeds. And he's visiting his farm, and his farm's at about 10,000 feet above sea level. And he's like, well, does it snow here? And they're like, no. And rye requires a couple of frosts in order for it to germinate. So he's like, but we get at least 2 frosts a year. So they planted it. And then he moved back to Italy, presumably, right? And then Jonathan picks him up hitchhiking. And this guy and nobody else, they don't have part rye as part of their food and
That's not in their
culinary
diet.
history. It's not part of their diet. There is no practice with it. So Jonathan's like, I'll buy it all. Great. And since then, he's been buying 100% of his yield. In the earliest days, it was producing enough rye for Jonathan to fill up one 30-gallon barrel, which is about a 3/4 size barrel. Now there's enough rye to add a little bit to the Barbieri mash bill and fill up 2 53-gallon barrels or full-size barrels a year. So that's how small this production is. That's how small, like, what's going on in Maiz Nation is, and how fortunate, because this wouldn't exist without so many random, unexpected, unplanned moments in life. So that's why I say this really shouldn't exist. On the first importation, which is what you're having now, this was 94% rye, 6% malted barley. It was proof down. It is aged 2 years, so aged a little bit longer than the previous one, and proof down a little bit more to 44% alcohol. And we don't even get full batches or full single barrels into allocated for the United States. It is being sold in Mexico. All of this is. It is being sold in Europe. So we had 9 6-packs of that batch come in, and you're having the opportunity. That's what you're having right now. Cheers.
What's that? We have some.
No,
I bought some.
Yeah, no, you have all of it. So whatever is left is here.
I bought it.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, you just tried it. Do you see why? It's a good rye.
Mm.
And like, again, when you see something like I was like, he's like, oh, we have a rye. I go, from Mexico. Who the hell, who the hell is growing rye? By the way, when you have to have 2 frosts on a rye, I think that's a winter rye. I don't even think that's a regular rye.
Sure.
Somebody with a lot more agricultural experience will be able to tell me. But that to me is like, I'm like, there's no way. And then on top of it, thank God he is actually a distiller, because the worst thing in the world to work with is then start working with rye, your first shot out of the barn. And it can be a rather difficult grain to work with anyways.
Jonathan's a former mezcal distiller as well.
Right. He's got experience enough to do it, but I've seen
there's a variety called Jabalí of agave, and that has like those foaming properties that rye has. So
I've seen experienced distillers brought to their knees working with rye.
I think
it's to the point where I've had one guy goes, I will never work with it again. I will never do anything with it again.
Don't quote me on this, but I think he's got to do like 1/3 capacity on the fermentation tanks, where on the corn he's probably at like 65% capacity. Yeah. On our next import, we do have what is coming is Jonathan and Maiz Nation and Mexico's first ever single malt, and he really likes he's like, man, working with the malt is a lot easier. So I think he's able to fill up the fermentation tanks more. It's less fickle.
I think it has a higher yield too.
A higher yield. It's more forgiving.
Yeah.
And he's really excited. He's like, it takes the really nice, taking the oak really nicely, the barrel really nicely. I haven't tried it yet. That's something, though, on our website, if you're on it, I would encourage you, if you're interested in that or things like that from us to get on our mailing list,
Oh
because
yeah, put that
we
up there.
do talk about that in advance. And so we'll have 20 cases, which is I think about 2/3 of the yield of that single barrel. That is a single barrel, by the way, the single malt release. We'll have about 20 cases coming to the US. And yeah, I'm excited to try it. Hopefully I'll get to try it along you guys with you guys.
Well, that's not okay. The newsletter worked. So
Yay.
I put both of the website and the newsletter, sign up for the newsletter on the Julio's Liquors Facebook page underneath this live feed. So if you're interested in going, it's pretty easy to get. What do you think of this rye? I'm like I got to tell you, I was like blown away.
Yeah.
I was very excited about it, and I was like, this is really good. It's even got like this really nice cooling finish to it.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and I was sort of like, what was the ABV on this one again?
It's 44.
44. But I thought it was really different, really cool, and something that, I mean, even just the story. I mean, whiskey and spirits in general are just full of stories,
Right.
right? I mean, that's part of the lore of a lot of stuff we do, and just like sort of the accident with the Italian, baker, and then he happened to a guy who makes whiskey happens to pick this guy up hitchhiking. It's just like it was meant to be type story to me. And then then you taste it and go like, oh, it can be meant to be. It might not be when you taste it.
Right.
And then I tasted it and I was like, damn, that's a lot of people will be really proud to make something like this. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're ever in Oaxaca for visiting,
Don't get in an accident with an Italian baker.
well, you might make a new friend. But
You never know.
you could come and visit. So Oaxaca has a ton of different experiences. It's really culturally rich. It's culinarily rich. It's textile rich and distillery rich. So people have been going more and more. And if you and if you find yourself down there, we could reach out to me and we could set you up with a tour of the distillery. You'll meet the family that make it. It's an easy taxi, about 40-minute taxi out and back from the city. It's in the suburb of Oaxaca City. I say taxi because it's better to take taxis than rent a car. My Spanish is really pretty good until I'm returning the car and they flip over the contract and it's like, oh God. Yeah.
That's called legal Spanish.
Yeah, legal Spanish.
Legal Spanish is not for everybody.
Right. It's
all right. Well, listen, man, I want to thank you so much for coming
you
to share
so
the
much.
experience.
Yeah, thank you all.
That was really great. Thanks,
you.
man.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Hopefully you guys have found some new favorites, maybe, or at least expanded your mind as to what thinking about whiskey is. These tequilas are amazing. We'll go through that thing. We're just going to let everybody go that's on Facebook. Thank you, everybody on Facebook. And, of course, you can always get It's the Liquor Talking wherever you get your podcasts, including now YouTube. And go back and watch them or watch some other ones that we haven't had. But, in all honesty, you should have been here because it was awesome. All right, we'll see you later.